Like it when, because we're gonna look at you. I don't like how we were doing it. Are we live?
Not yet.
Oh,
Just about.
hey, what's up, guys? Battleborn Media Networks doing a special edition of our community highlight show. We're coming at you live from our location right here in the heart of downtown Elko, and we have a special guest to talk about some of the topics that have been happening and what's going on through with the county commission and some of the issues that are going on. We have our Elko County Commissioner Cliff Eklund and former mayor of Carlin, and also former. I'm going to let you give us your bio. You can tell us. We always kind of like everyone to, what. Give us your background, what it is that you've done, even before you got into public office.
Well, our family owned a drilling company here, and we done mining exploration, and that's how we made our living. We came originally from North Dakota. The Eklund family did, and we have a small farm in North Dakota, and us 5 boys worked together in the drilling company all our working lives. And my oldest brother came to Carlin in 1961 and was the original contractor for Newmont when they done the drilling north of Carlin for the initial exploration for gold up there. And we continued on with that contract till Eklund Drilling sold. I'm not sure what year it was we sold. It was in about 2012 or something like that. And I got into politics in 2002 as a Carlin City Council person. I served 4 years on the council and then ran for mayor and was mayor for 8 years. So I was termed out on the city council in Carlin. And Jeff Williams was in the county commissioner in our district, and he encouraged me to run for county commission, and I ran for county commission, and I'm in my second term. Last year, my second term.
Okay, so before we start jumping into the issues, did your family know about drilling before you got into it, or was it?
Yes, my older brother went to work for a seismograph crew when he was in his late teen years, and they'd done exploration drilling, seismograph exploration drilling, as well as they'd done the drilling when they built the Garrison Dam, which is now the backwaters are called Lake Sakakawea on the Missouri River, which at that time was the largest earth-built dam in the world. His boss liked him. They grew a pretty good relationship and sold him a rig, and that's how we got started in the drilling business. And in North Dakota, there's 2 kinds of work for kids, for people, and that was either farming or working in the oil field. So a lot of us went to work in the oil fields at a very young age because they really didn't care back then how old you were, as if he was big enough to do the job. So I roughnecked between my junior and senior year on the oil rigs.
So that being said, I remember the story coming out. If it's your brother, correct me if I'm wrong, it was kind of an accident on how he found Elko, pretty much. I remember a story because I do know the Eklund family. But I remember a story that the way that drilling company got started was that somebody was passing by and saw something and basically went.
Yeah, Lou was down here doing some seismograph work in Pine Valley, and he'd finished the job and was heading back to Grand Junction because that's where his office was at the time. And he was fueling up at Sinclair Station in Carlin, and a guy come driving by and asked him if he wanted to drill 4 or 5 holes north of Carlin. And he said sure, because he didn't have another job to go to. So he went up there, and it was Newmont, and that was the start of the original exploration up north of Carlin. That was, I think it was 1960 or 61.
So I remember that story.
The original 5 holes, like, hey, just passing through. You want to come drill a couple holes up here, and we have North America's largest gold mining operation.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty good deal.
And then I mean, it kind of goes, when you were asking how long this is going on, how it basically started from something small like that, just a quick text message, and it, not saying that we're as big as that drilling company, but it started from kind of a simple text message, I guess you will. Literally.
I always say 5 dumb farm boys. I was the only one who graduated from high school, worked together, and built a pretty successful company. My oldest brother designed quite a bit of mining equipment that improved the technology, such as the track rigs and the sampling systems that we are still used today.
Well, I believe it was and again, correct me if I'm wrong. So I played football with Cliff Eklund,
right?
Which is Lance's son.
Right.
So who's his grandpa? Who is that?
Lou.
Lou. So Lou used to film our games when we played on the Aztecs, and he also filmed our high school games. And he's the one that filmed the video.
You not calling crack?
Yes. we have this inside joke because, he used to always film our games. And in high school, one of the guys got a concussion, and we won't even get into it, but he's the one that filmed. He was the cameraman. So we're gonna watch it on our sports show because the guy says that I didn't make a call, and I actually did, but he ended up getting a concussion because supposedly I didn't make a call. But that's our sports show. We'll get into politics. I'll let Danny kind of take over and jump into some of the topics that we want to talk about. Do you want a cup of coffee?
I don't care. If you got one, I'll have one.
I'll grab one, and I'll let Danny kind of jump in on this.
Well, so we're kind of going a little bit backwards here. Your history of your family is super important. I know, over in Carlin, you guys have done a lot for the city of Carlin and of course the county of Elko. Talk a little bit about you've been in politics roughly 20 years now. So talk a little bit about how politics have changed in your time in politics and to where we are now.
Well, it's changed considerably, I think. I kind of like the old way of doing things. We've always had disagreements in politics, different ways of doing things or different beliefs. But we was always able to sit down across the table from one another, have a discussion, and in the end, we usually ended up somewhere in the middle of both sides of the issue. And went on, and now it's gotten to where it's almost no compromise. It's you're either right or left, and there's no compromise on the whole situation. And I'm not sure that that's good for the community as a whole or the nation as a whole.
Sure.
I think somewhere in the middle is somewhere about right. Whether you're right or left, I think that if you get somewhere in the middle of that, you're probably about right.
Sure. And we have talked about that on this show. A lot of the decisions are being made because of what side of the aisle or what side of the fence you're on, which isn't the best for the community.
No, I don't think so either. I hear politicians in Washington saying, well, the Democrats or the Republicans or whoever's in control, they all vote party line. They don't vote a issue line.
Right.
They don't vote a constituent line. And what I mean by that is in politics, I've always tried to represent the people that elected me.
As you should.
And I've made many votes that was not good for me personally, financially, or business-wise, but it was best for the community as a whole. And I think that's we've kind of lost that because we go to party line voting. And I don't see that here in Elko County. I think both the city councils and the county commissions try and represent the people the best they can. But on the national level and on the state level, I don't see that.
Well, I can completely agree with that. I think that that's one of the reasons why we do this is the transparency and answers like that. So I completely agree with everything you just said. I was listening as I was getting your call. I don't know if you wanted sugar or
No, that's fine.
So if it's a
Said he was an old farm. He said he was an old farm boy, man. That should have gave you
he's
black coffee,
used to
man.
cowboy coffee. He knows what's up. He'll eat the grinds. Have you ever had cowboy coffee?
Yeah, well, I fought fire, so I had a little
you've
bit
had
of that,
yes. So he knows. So jumping into our next topic, as far as you recently did an interview talking about a couple of issues that are happening, a couple of votes that the Elko County Commission did, and you did an interview, and we just, as Battleborn Media Networks, if you want to throw that out there or you want me to, Danny, that's completely up to you.
No, I just, listening to the interview, I wasn't real pleased how it was handled. We feel that you were kind of attacked on the show, unjustly so. We talked about, having your own opinions and your own decisions. We just didn't think it was real cool how that interview was conducted. So what we want to bring up and let you elaborate a little bit more without berating you is the recent decision that you had the CDC's proposal on the table, talking about a county health officer or whatever. Why don't you go ahead and explain to us, first of all, what was on the table, what was presented to you guys, and then how you guys came to that decision to not take the money from the CDC?
Well, first of all, it was a grant. It wasn't a proposal to establish a health department. It was a grant to do a study only, and it was a $500,000 grant. There was a lot of concerns with the public about how it was going to be conducted. We had about as balanced of testimony at the county commission as I've seen in 20 years, as far as people for and against. The concern was, with a lot of us, was we didn't know how the study was going to be conducted. We didn't understand the procedure that was going forward. Is it a study just to tell us, yes, you need a health department? I don't think we need that kind of a study. Right now, the health department is being run by the state in Elko County, and they do numerous jobs. They do inspections of cafes. They do water and sewer inspections. It's more than just the coronavirus. In a normal time, they conduct a lot of inspections that protect the public from disease or health issues. And the state is doing that now, and the county pays the state a fee for doing that. I don't know, I can't think of the number right off the top of my head, but that's the way it's being conducted now. The study was to take a look at opening up a health department here where we'd have our local people doing those inspections, our local departments doing those inspections. There was a lot of concern on the county commission level of how that was going to look when they got done with the study. Was it going to be just a pro-health department study, or was it a study that was going to tell us the pros and the cons? So there was a lot of questions that were asked. I don't think we got a lot of questions answered to our satisfaction, and that's basically why it was voted down.
So to be clear, the grant was not to build a health district or a health clinic or a public health nurse. It was just for the study to see.
It was a 2-year study.
You need this, you need that. So either way, whether the pandemic was going on, it would not. Even if it was just a study, you said a 2-year study, nothing would have been built for at a minimum 2 years.
Right.
Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So for you, Cliff, why? And I know you can't speak for the other county commissioners, which I wouldn't ask you to. For you, what was your biggest hang-up? Why did you vote against it? Explain a little bit about that.
Well, for one thing, it's a 2-year study. We don't know what's going to happen 2 years down the road. We don't know if the coronavirus is still going to be here. We don't know what variant we're going to be in. In my past, and I expressed this in the county commission meeting, when I was mayor, there was a grant that came up to put an extra police officer on the Elko County Drug Enforcement team. And we took that grant, and we hired the extra police officer. The grant went away after a year or two, but the position didn't. And that has a serious impact on the budgets. And that was one of my concerns. I just feel that we got to look at the best use of our tax dollars. And I think eventually we're going to have a health department in Elko County because, as you know, we get handed down unfunded mandates all the time. We've seen it with the fire district, where we had to spend millions and millions of dollars establishing a fire district because of an unfunded mandate. I believe this is eventually going to happen with the health department. But we don't have to spend $500,000 on a study to see if we need one or not, because it's pretty obvious we need one, whether it be on the state level or the county level.
So with the whole study part, and again, I'm asking, correct me if I'm wrong, just because a study is done, does that mean that there will actually be something that happens from that study?
No.
It's just a study.
It's just a study.
Okay.
So safe to say, I mean, it sounds to me like it's already being considered anyways. So it's something that we could do in-house because we don't have a current public health department. But does the Elko County Commission have plans to discover that? Or
we haven't, that I've seen, I haven't seen anything that is being budgeted or being planned in the future. We do have volunteers that are working on the corona thing, coronavirus. Amanda Osborne, county manager, is part of that team and doing follow-ups and working with the state health department, which is to say we don't have a health department in Elko County is not totally correct, because we do have the state as the county health department. And that volunteer group of people that's working with the coronavirus and the issues of the coronavirus works closely with the state health department.
So one of the oppositions that came from that interview was you had, as you stated earlier, that there was half and half. You know, some people opposed, a lot of people for it. But one of the comments that was made was that the people that were opposed to it were conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, I don't consider the people that come and talk to the county commission and maybe in opposition of a popular issue. Conspiracy. I think they're Elko County citizens that have the right to voice their opinion. And whether they are for what I represent or against, they still have that right, and they're Elko County citizens. They're not conspirators.
And that's kind of, you touched a little bit about that when we were talking about the change in politics. Nowadays, you can't go into an issue and say, okay, well, we agree to disagree. Now all of a sudden you're attacking the other side. Now because you don't look at things how I look at things, you must be a conspiracy theorist. And I don't think that's fair. And I think that's where a lot of the problems is coming out, especially out of mainstream media, is that automatically you are against what we believe, and typically it's on the liberal side of things. Automatically you're a conspiracy theorist. And I've found over the years that it's only a conspiracy theory until it's proven correct, and more often than not,
which a lot of things really have, quite honestly.
They're proven correct. So do you think that's kind of how things have gone, Cliff?
I think so. And it's on both sides of the aisle, the name calling and all that. And in my opinion, when you start calling names or whatever it may be, conspirator or racist or whatever, and bring these into a political issue, there's a lot of people that get a mindset that says, go to hell.
Sure.
Because they're not conspirators. They're expressing an opinion. Mm-hmm. They're not racists. There are racists, but just because you don't agree with a political issue doesn't make you a racist. We've seen so much of that in the Trump era, the name calling and all that, and it didn't do anybody any good.
No,
it really didn't. And being able to speak on that, because being Hispanic, obviously I've experienced racism. To me, joking around, me and Danny will joke around with each other. I mean, we joke around about how I'm short and everything like that. And I will say this any day of the week, is that to me, racism is if there's a comment made and you can tell there's hatred behind it, then that's racism. If you're calling me a name because I'm short or because I'm Mexican, and I can tell that you have hatred behind it, then to me that's racism. But if you're doing it because it's the truth, it's like, hey, you're a short Mexican, haha. There's no hatred behind that comment. Right. You can call me that all day long, and I'll call Danny whatever
comes up.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He knows that there's no hatred behind it. I don't hate you because you are that I can tell when someone is racist because they come at me because I'm Hispanic.
Yeah.
But if they're just joking around or they make a comment, you can tell when there's hatred behind it.
Politically, in the last 10 years, some of those terms have been used so much that they've lost the impact that was originally intended. I've seen comments made that probably had nothing to do with race, but it was interpreted as race. And so, when you attach racism to something like that, it loses the impact of what real racism is. I seen racism in the 60s. I was born and raised 15 miles from an Indian reservation, the Sioux Indian Reservation in North Dakota. And some of the best people I knew came off the Indian reservation. But racism prevailed in that area. And I think in our past, racism has been a big part of our culture, and not a good part. I know when I was a kid, I remember Indians, they used to come up and sell fence posts. They'd cut fence posts off the Missouri River, and they'd come up to our place, and the folks would feed them and give them place to stay for the night so they could make a travel, you know, and us kids weren't raised to be racist, but there was a lot of racists in that country.
Well, yeah, and it is like you said. It's part of our past. It's part of our history, and that's unfortunately. I mean, it's trying to be erased, and I don't think that that's the right way to go about things, because I mean, history is what gets us to today. Learning from our past mistakes, learning from what we've done before or haven't done before, and being better because of that. And I think that that's getting lost. And like you said, people are just throwing around terms nowadays to where it does lose the meaning. It does you forget what actual racism is, or whatever the term that's being thrown around. And I know we're using racism a lot, but that's across the board. I mean, everybody's just hypersensitive to anything, and we need to have a little bit thicker skin when we go into these type of discussions, so we make the best decisions for the people that put you into those positions.
And have an actual discussion.
Right.
You know, I seen a comment made, and I kind of believe it. It said destroying statues and historical markers because they're offensive to some people don't realize that they were a reminder of the dark past we've had, and remind us not to repeat that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you find, I mean, with the Robert E. Lee and things like that, and going back to the Civil War, and yeah, there was statues erected of it, but that's not necessarily in support of what he stood for. That's, like you said, to remind us of the mistakes we made in the past, so we don't enter into another Civil War type of event, which we're rapidly approaching. Unfortunately,
Don't even. Okay, so before we kind of got a little off topic, and I don't even know how we got there, but so is there any other comments or statements that you would like to say about the whole health department vote and your views on it, or anything that has to do with it?
pretty much support what we voted. It was a 4-1 vote with Wildy Ruff voting for it. And his reasoning was a very good reasoning, and that was mental health. And we do have mental health issues in Elko County with the suicide rates and the drug problems that we have in the county. We do have mental health, so I understand his vote totally, and I respect his vote. I don't.
And you guys still talk, I assume, right?
We're good. We're good friends.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not
so
like
you can vote on both sides of the aisle and still be friends.
Exactly.
Look at that.
So you can go have a cup of coffee with him.
Yeah.
You know that I'm glad that you brought that up, because mental health. We actually just held a show on January 2nd. I lost my best friend to suicide and that's the date that he did that in 2010. I believe. I always get because I have another year that I had another cousin pass away also, so I always get. But yes, 2010. I hope I got that. Sorry, David, if I got it wrong. But we did a show, and we actually had our Elko County undersheriff in here. We had a friend of mine's mom, Wendy, who does a lot of advocating for suicide prevention, but. The show wasn't mainly just about suicide. Yes, that was the reason why we had it, but it was mainly about mental health and the mental health problem, and especially with everything happening right now, how higher it's gotten. And you know, our undersheriff had all kinds of stats and about the amount of suicides, the amount of things that have been happening, not just because of it's not strictly because of COVID.
No,
but it doesn't help.
No, confinement, lack of social contact. I think it all plays a part. And like you said, I don't think corona virus was the total cause, but I think it had an impact. I think we've seen, according to ITOR, our sheriff, we've seen an increase in domestic violence and other things. Getting back to the suicide thing, it just breaks my heart when I hear of a young person committing suicide. You know, I just read a report that they've had suicides in Vegas as young as 8 years old.
Yeah, we had what they say six.
Yeah.
That they there was a dispatcher that they had to file a report saying that their youngest was a 6-year-old calling saying that they were going to commit suicide. Yeah. And you know that's just that's crazy to me, because at 6 years old, I mean, I remember when I was 6 years old, and I probably didn't even know what suicide was.
No.
So
I think social media has played.
I was about to say that. So it's on all different generations that we realize that social media is having an effect. Social media is a great thing. We can't hate on social media. Mark Zuckerberg, we love you, dude.
It's a good tool, just like anything else. I mean, anything you could take anything and use it for nefarious reasons or negative reasons or a positive. Yep. So
yeah, you can take a car
and use it for something positive or use it for something negative.
Yeah,
exactly.
We've seen several cases where somebody's used a car to kill people.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like the guys that are running into crowds or driving into crowds.
I don't know how many million people own guns, but you take the small minority that commit a crime with a gun and it gets national news.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so Danny, I'll let you jump over.
Well, let's just kind of shift gears just a little bit, Cliff. Let's talk about some of the accomplishments that the commission has made over the past year. I know you guys awarded some federal relief aid, and also working on that child advocacy center we talked to Tyler Ingram about. So talk a little bit about what the county commission has done over the last year and who we've given some money to.
Well, the ARPA funding came in at $5 million for this year and $5 million for next year. We established a committee headed up by Delmo Andriozzi and Rick Steninger to review applications for that ARPA funding. And Boys and Girls Club, I think, got $250,000. The monoclonal treatment got $250,000. We contributed that, and both those were done early because we felt that it was in the best public interest to get that I have a hard time with that word, but get that treatment going, and I think it proved its worth. Because in October and November, we had a tremendous spike in the coronavirus, and they started with that treatment, and we've seen a dramatic drop, and it almost bucked the national trend. We're starting to see an increase with the new variant now, but we'll see where that goes. The Boys and Girls Clubs, they was being overwhelmed because the kids weren't in school, the young children weren't in school, and the parents either had to stay home from work or find some place for their kids to go. So the Boys and Girls Clubs became the place for them to go, and it's a great entity there. So we felt it was very important to get some money to them to assist them in this pandemic. We also gave Spring Creek. Spring Creek was awarded, I think, $1.8 million. These figures I'm running off the top of my head, so if they're not exactly correct, Spring Creek got $1.8 million. The Lions Club got I forget the exact amount, but as you know, the fire went through and burnt down the Boy Scout camp up there in Lamoille Canyon. So the committee felt that it was important to help them out because their fundraising was hampered during the pandemic. The fairgrounds got money because horse racing was shut down.
So now, was it the fairgrounds or was it the fair board, or is it the same thing?
It's the same thing.
And what about the rodeo?
The Silver State Rodeo is a separate entity at the fairgrounds, and they got some money.
Okay.
Because they was limited in capacity of what they could have there.
So, what was your reasoning for I heard your kind of the answer you were able to give. I know it helps with basically with the local economy, the Silver State Stampede, the Elko County Fair, all those things. But what was your reasoning for awarding that money to those places?
I felt that they had a dramatic financial negative impact when we had to shut down. And those two entities are very important to the economy of Elko County. So I just felt it was to me it was a no-brainer to get them back on track, get them some money so they could get back on track and do their whatever maintenance they had to do, whatever capital improvements they had to do, and whatever they needed to get our economy back going again. We've been very fortunate in Elko. Our economy hasn't been impacted a lot, but entities have. Businesses have been, especially small businesses. I know in Carlin, we lost the car show and the Ranch Hand Road, all events at the rodeo grounds due to the pandemic. So, all these small communities, fundraising, nonprofit organizations, and businesses all had a negative impact in this area. So even though our economy was good or better than most because of mining,
yeah,
a lot of businesses suffered, of the small businesses.
So this is going to be your last term on the Elko County Commission. What would you like to? Do you have any pet projects? Do you have anything that you really want to make sure gets accomplished in this last year? How would you like to go out, Cliff?
In politics, I never really had an agenda. I was able to accomplish things in Carlin because I had the support of the people. The skate park, we built that with all volunteer labor and business contributions and things. The rodeo grounds is the same thing. We was able to build that mostly with volunteer labor, donated equipment. I mean, it was a community effort. We had a grant from a $200,000 grant from Department of Agriculture, I believe, but it basically was no cost to the city because it was all done with volunteer. My only ambition in politics was to represent the people and make decisions that I felt was best for the majority of the people and listen to people. I've always had an open door policy, and I've had phone calls, and I appreciate those phone calls, both for a particular subject or against it, and I want to hear them. I want to hear both sides. And sometimes it's been my wife has been a little upset about getting the phone calls at 3 a.m. because 3 guys were down at the City Club in Carlin and had this great idea and wanted to run it by me. but I've always enjoyed people.
Well, going off a couple of points that you brought up there, Carlin is with the 2 years, 3 years that we've been working with with the city of with Ellen and the entire city pretty much. I've noticed that it's just the community comes like together. It's a family.
The city of Carlin is amazing.
Yes.
The volunteerism that comes out of here. Every time I go over there, I help Ellen with the Friends of the Library softball tournament and whatnot, and Little League events and whatever. But it's just a breath of fresh air when you go over there to see the amount of local support. And I often say that, I mean, if we could get 50% of the effort that the community of Carlin does over in Elko, we'd be the greatest city in the nation.
Yeah,
it's just, we love Carlin, and we love their support and what they do over there.
I think last year they didn't know. Remember the Christmas one? They only had a little bit because they weren't sure if they were going to be able to do it.
Right.
So they only had like don't quote me on this, but like a week to plan this thing. And their Christmas festival was amazing. The fireworks, the whole setup that they had, and they had to do it last minute because they weren't sure if they were going to be allowed to do it because of COVID and all that stuff. But putting that thing on in 1 week, me and Danny have done quite a bit of events. I don't know that we could have pulled that off.
Yeah, no, it's great.
You know, you're right. The volunteerism in Carlin is great. If you take the spook walk,
Yep.
you take the car show, you take the rodeo,
Chili feed.
chili feed, all volunteers. The fire department,
Yep.
that's a volunteer fire department. I think we have 20-some people on that fire department, all volunteer, donating their own time. And we can thank the mines for that a little bit, because the people go to work. As you know, most people in Carlin work at the mines, and they go to work and they get the training at the mines for EMTs, for first aid, for firefighting, and they bring that back into the community. And they join the ambulance crew, they join the fire department, and contribute to the community. We've got a great volunteer group in Carlin, and I'm so proud of them.
Yeah, and you, as you should be, because we are too. When we were out there, it was pretty. It was pretty. That was like the first big event I had actually been to in Carlin when we did our first the Christmas festival that they did, and I was just so impressed at the amount of support. So, Cliff, we're gonna finish up. I can hear. I apologize if you do hear my daughter. She's up there yelling or playing, or I don't know what she's doing, but she's getting babysat up there. So we're gonna finish up. If there's anything anything else you wanna throw out there, we already talked about your family's history and. What are your plans? Are you going to retire, or are you gonna keep working, doing something?
I retired in 2005 or 6, and it was the most boring 5 days of my life.
5 days.
My wife and I plan on doing some traveling, and I'd still like to stay involved with the community. I'm the chairman of the Equestrian Park Board there in Carlin, and so I'll have that to work with, and I'm the type of person that needs to have something to do, or I get in trouble, you know. Yeah. And
well, you made it a whole 5 days.
But I need something to do, and my wife and I would like to do some traveling, and we bought a new camper this year, and we're planning on doing some traveling with that, and I still have my place in North Dakota. I bought my parents' farm up there years ago, and we still have that, so I can go up and play around in that. Great pheasant hunting, great deer hunting, and I love hunting. So there's a few things I want to do. I'll be 73 years old when I finish this term, and there's a few things that I want to do when I'm still at an age where I physically can. So,
all right, Danny, if you want.
No, just thanks for spending time with us, Cliff. We appreciate you coming on, and you know, anybody out there in the community that's watching, that's what this community highlights segment is for. Is is to highlight some things in the community. Of course, if you've lived in Elko any amount of time, you've heard the name Eklund. So this is one of the boys here, and he's done a lot for Elko County politics. And we thank you for spending the time, Cliff. And if you ever want to come back on, just shoot us a text. We'll get you back.
Well,
on.
thank you for having me. And if you got anything you want to talk to me about, just give me a call.
Of course we will. Well, Elko County Commissioner Cliff Eklund. And there's my cue. The Athena's working her way over there. So we're going to finish up. Thank you for watching our community highlight on Battleborn Media Networks.